Welcome back to Kings of Columbus. It's been a month. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. Bill, right? It's been a while. People are taking their coffee cups and running them against the bars of the jail. Say like, hey, we won Kings of Columbus.
We got many messages about where is Kings of Columbus. I think people were worried for a time that we just decided to scrap the show, which is not the case. We just had to take a brief pause.
No, we're not. We will not be silent scrappers. If we ever go down, we're going down screaming. I'm not going to like slip silently into the ocean like Leonardo DiCaprio. It's not going to be like Kate Winslet wakes up and I'm frozen to death. Kate Winslet, I would like wake her from her sleep. Oh, I'm freezing. I'm freezing. The show is dying. The show is dying. You'll know. You will know.
Yeah.
So the show just took a nap while I recovered from eye surgery. So we have a bunch of awesome texter questions and comments. We want to talk a little bit about like the structure of the spring game. Is it fun? What would people like to see? A little bit about the quarterback situation at Ohio State, an offensive line question of a survey with our tech subscribers. But mostly we have like about 10 or 12 overall questions about the Buckeyes, college football, ending with one about if you rubbed a Genie bottle and Woody Hayes came out and granted you one wish about Ohio State sports, what would it be? So like, that's like a Woody Genie. Like what's the better question than the Woody Genie? I feel like that's a segment for us from now on.
I like the Woody Genie. I feel like the Woody Genie like only grants like World War II related wishes though.
Yeah.
Like, if you want anything not to do with World War II, you're screwed.
And there's a pretty decent chance that if the Woody Genie doesn't like your wish, he's not going to grant it. He's just going to kick you in the butt.
Yeah.
Like, try again. Bad wish, try again.
Yeah.
Woody Genie, can I have a hot dog? Bad wish.
Let me tell you about Erwin Rommel. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm as we get more and more into this, I'm like very interested like in bits. Like I really want this to be almost like a skit show as much as a sports podcast, which I'm sure is not what the audience wants. They would just please do sports. We don't want Doug doing skits. But like I would be like very into like dressing up like a Woody Hayes Genie. And if we can somehow get Berm to like do something where it makes it look like I'm coming out of a bottle, I would wear like hammer pants. It'd be hammer pants. You'd be able to see my belly button, and then the Blocko hat and the glasses. And that would be the Woody Hayes Genie on our skit show. So we're going to go through all that stuff, but we have a really good one at the start that is about, I want to tell people this real quick. So this is, what day is it? It's Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think this is going to be on Ohio State's website on Thursday, but I will be hosting like a farewell interview with Gene Smith, sort of covering his time as the Ohio State athletic director, asking him questions about the future of college sports. It's going to be at Ohio State. And it's sort of like, instead of having a final news conference, Ohio State asked me if I just wanted to like sort of moderate this and just come up with all the questions. It's just, we all would want to ask the same questions. So anyway, I'm going to be doing that on Thursday. So you can catch that, I think, on Ohio State's channel. And then I think we'll probably, I don't know if we'll cut it up or it'll be out there. Anyway. Are you going to go, Landis? You going to go watch it?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I was told there were refreshments, so I'll be there.
Great. And I will say, if you're Costco, we were just talking about Costco hot dogs before the show. It's like, can we have Costco hot dogs at the Gene farewell? Then Landis will show up. Thanks for the support, brother. I didn't shave for like 3 weeks while I was having eye surgery and lying on my face and recovering and just being like a slob. So I was saving my facial hair for a bit that I wanted to do. I ordered a Georgia Bulldogs hat for Kings of the North, and I was going to introduce this character who's like Stetson Bennett's cousin, and I was going to have like a weird the hat hasn't come yet. I'm so mad. It's 2 days late, but it's free shipping. So I think the reason to not shave for a while is to then shave your facial hair in patches into different ridiculous things before you shave it off. So I did try to shave it into what I thought my Southern guy thing would have been, which is kind of like a mustache that drips down to my chin here. Does it look good or weird or both?
A little bit of a handlebar action.
Yeah.
If you had it dangling, it'd be a Fu Manchu, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know if I can. I don't think I can dangle my facial hair. I'm not that much of a man. But anyway, I will shave this before Gene Smith. I'm not gonna...
I don't think you should. I think actually you should keep that and then shave your head. Really
I'm sorry,
Gene.
It's for a whole Georgia bit. I'm Stetson Bennett's cousin. I'm sorry. Anyway, congratulations on your career. All right. The first question is about depth. And this has been, do you feel like the idea of you need more depth in the 12-team playoff, do you feel like that's a thing that's percolating in college football right now?
Yes. To the point where I think it's probably being over discussed, but yeah, it's definitely percolating.
Over percolated.
Yeah.
But we have it's really more of a rant from Jacob, and he admits it's more of a rant than it is an actual question. And I went to Costco and I bought readers last night because I realized, after surgery on your eye, you might need a little extra help. So now I have a weird mustache and reading glasses. In your opinion, how important is our depth this season? Meaning 2 and 3 deep. I think losing any player who has a legitimate shot to see the field is pretty important. So I think he's talking a little bit about the transfer portal. I think, some of the guys they lost in the safety room in the portal, that kind of thing. The main point here from Jacob is he thinks people are like sort of like, whatever. Ohio State lost some backups. He thinks the depth is important. And he says this is also coming from a fan base that needed a third string quarterback to win the Natty in 2015, given it was a different time back then. But I think the principle still applies. More of a rant than a question, but oh well. He's a little concerned about this and thinks that people are underestimating maybe some of the depth that Ohio State has lost. So I want to do 2 things with this question, and this is not going to be rapid. We're going to spend a little time on this. First, I would like us to run through the depth that we think we feel good about on this team right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to write this down. I'm mostly going to make you do this.
Okay.
If Caleb Downs... we know Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom are the starting safeties. How many other safeties would you feel good about right now if they had to play a decent amount?
That's a good question. I'm pulling up my roster list here. So I would say I would feel good about this. Will maybe sound weird because Jahad Carter has done like next to nothing in an Ohio State uniform, but he was a good player at Syracuse. So I would feel okay, I think, about him if he had to play. I still very much like Malik Hartford. I think I'd be feeling okay if he had to play as well. And then like your only other options are Jaden Bonsu, Jalen McClain, and Leroy Roker, who's not here yet. I probably don't feel great about either of them, although like Bonsu and McClain made pretty good pushes this spring. But I would say I feel okay about the next 2, Carter and Hartford.
Okay, we'll do 2. I think it's very hard to feel good about a true freshman, no matter how, Jalen McClain had a good play in the spring game. But even like the difference between Malik Hartford last year and Malik Hartford this year, when Malik Hartford had to play a little bit last year, it wasn't as good maybe as people thought it would be. But now he has a whole year under him, and to expect that, okay, now he'll be ready to handle it, I think makes sense. All right, corner. Davison Igbinosun, Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke, the starters. How many other corners do you feel good about?
I feel good about Jermaine Matthews, and I feel good about Calvin Simpson Hunt. And this is based mostly off how people have talked about him, but it seems like Lorenzo Styles has made a bit of a move. Like I probably wouldn't say I feel good about Lorenzo Styles because like he hasn't played defense in college football, but I buy a little bit of the hype there. But I would say I feel good about the next 2 and Jermaine Matthews and Calvin Simpson Hunt.
All right, linebacker. Cody Simon, Sonny Styles as the starter. What other linebackers would you feel good about?
I actually like this group quite a bit. I would feel good about you said Simon and Hicks as the starters?
No, Simon and Sonny.
Okay, so Hicks I feel good about because I actually think Hicks will probably start ahead of Sonny right now.
Can I not? I don't want to live in a world where Sonny Styles is not starting this for this Ohio State defense. How did we get here? Is that where we are? I can't live in that world. I'm going to detach my other retina. What are we doing?
We got
How
all
is
summer.
He not one of their best 11?
I think he will be by the time like games start.
But you don't think? Well, where's he going to start? If you think Hicks is going to start,
I don't. It's a complicated question because
I'm worried. I'm upset. Too many players.
I'm not worried because I think James Arnott is going to play more linebackers than we've been accustomed to the last few years. So I feel good about whichever 2 start out of Cody Simon, CJ Hicks, and Sonny Styles, and then obviously feel good about the third guy there. And I feel pretty good about Gabe Powers, and I can probably get there on Arvell Reese. I think Arvell Reese is maybe more of a like see ball, get ball kind of player at the moment than he is like a read and react guy that you can rely upon. But I think he could get there. So I'd say I feel good about 3 additional linebackers.
All right. Defensive end, JT and Jack as the starters. Who else you feel good about?
I feel actually pretty good about Mitchell Melton. I thought he looked
Okay.
really good in the spring game. I feel good about Kenyatta Jackson, and I feel good about Caden Curry.
All right. Defensive tackle. Let's call. Who are the starters? Tyleek Williams and who?
Ty Hamilton.
Ty Hamilton. So then who else do you feel good about?
Hiro Kanu, Caden McDonald, Jason Moore.
Tywan Malone or no?
Yeah, I mean, probably, yeah. Less so than the 3 I named before him, but yeah.
Okay. That's 13 guys on the defense behind the 11 starters that you'd feel good about. That, like, how do you feel about the defensive depth in this conversation?
I don't really have any concerns about it. Like, I guess there's the question of whether or not the young defensive tackles will show up like when the lights are on, right? But I think they've had a really good spring, and I think there's reason to believe that they will. And otherwise, I think they're pretty deep. Like, there's a drop off. I'm not saying like if Caleb Downs gets abducted by aliens that Malik Hartford's going to be as good, but I think he can still be good. So I feel very good actually about the depth on defense.
All right, on the offense. So let's make Luke Montgomery the starting right guard for now. So how many other offensive linemen do you feel good about behind the starting 5?
1, 2. I guess Carson Hinsman, Tegra Shabola.
Okay. Receiver. We'll say Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Emeka Buka are the starters. How many other receivers would you feel good about?
2, maybe Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers.
Okay. Tight end. What's going on at tight end?
I don't know. Like G Scott and then everybody else, I think, is kind of the vibe I'm getting from that position at the moment. So it's a weird group. Like I think it's like collectively like a better room that maybe it's been in a couple years, but there's like no surefire talent at the top, I think.
So do you feel good about the second tight end or no? Like Kazmarek as the second tight end or not exactly?
Yeah, I feel okay about it. Like he was the second tight end at Ohio. And I think played pretty well there, obviously to jump up, but I feel okay about Kazmarek and probably Jelani Thurman too. I would say I feel good about 3 tight ends there.
Okay. Running back. Obviously, there's 2 you feel great about, so there's at least 1 depth, whether it's Travion Henderson or Quinton Judkins. Any other running backs you would feel good about?
I like James Peoples. And like we had a discussion about him on the daily the other day, and like I expressed concern about a true freshman playing running back if he had to, and then Berm like rattled off 19 true freshman running backs that have played well in the history of Ohio State. So I think it's a position that maybe lends itself to true freshmen finding their footing a little easier. So I feel good about James Peoples too.
Because I think like in this conversation, it's like if you have to start, right? Like the depth conversation is like if something happens, I would not feel good about that. Like if you're trying to win a national championship and you say, hey, our starting running back is James Peoples against Oregon because Quinton Judkins and Travion Henderson both locked themselves in their apartment and the locksmith couldn't get there in time for them to make the flight. And James Peoples is starting. I don't know that I would think that's good enough.
I would think it's for the Oregon game. I don't know. Maybe not. Like generally, I think it's okay.
All right. I'll give you one. I'll give you Peoples. And then quarterback. Would you feel good about the backup quarterback if whoever it is in the battle, or would you even include Julian Say in there?
I would include Julian Say in there. Yeah, I feel I kind of like the depth of the quarterback room as we're having this conversation at 10:40 a.m. on Wednesday, which I think is an important qualifier.
Well, but so okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 guys of depth on offense. So that's 22 guys behind the 22 starters that you'd feel pretty good about. This is the conversation because I think it's a fair conversation that sort of was the jumping off point here of they did lose some second, third team, maybe third teamers who could make. Kai Stokes is a perfect example, right? If Kai Stokes was on this team still at safety and what he maybe looked like he might be at one point, and you're comparing him to Malik Hartford, maybe it's like Kai Stokes might be in this conversation if he was still here and he's not. Or Evan Pryor. I mean, they're both at Cincinnati. Yeah. If Evan Pryor was still here and we're like, okay, say something happens to the top 2 running backs, is Evan Pryor your third running back? Like that's where I think this conversation is. But those guys like that are gone. Do you think this team will have good depth if they need it?
Yeah, I do. Like, I think all the positions we run through, I'm sure there are spots where people might disagree. I would bang the table pretty hard for like the defense having the depth that it needs.
Yeah.
There's more questions on offense for sure. Like, because offensive line is a question mark. I think even receiver can get to a question mark rather quickly. Like, they lost Noah Rogers like after the season 2. Like, that's a guy that I think you'd put in that mix too if you're trying to find guys who could play. So I think yes, I think they have good enough depth. But I think it is somewhat significantly better on the defensive side than it is on the offensive side.
Okay. So that's establishing the baseline of like, okay, the depth is probably good enough. Now, the second part of this equation and this question is the depth conversation overblown in regards to a 12-team playoff where if you get one of the byes, you'd have to play 16 games to win a national title. And if you you only would have to play potentially 16 the other way. The worst case scenario is to make your conference championship game and lose it and then have to play in the first round. That's how you have to play 17.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there are going to be teams who are like, well, we didn't even make the conference championship game, so we didn't have to play the 13th game, but now we have to play 4 playoff games, so we're only at 16. So anyway, there's not that many teams whose path to a national championship would actually be 17 games.
Right.
It's more like 16 games. And 16 games is only one more game than it is right now. Which is like, right? Like it's a 15-game season, right? Michigan went 15-0 last year.
Yeah.
So I do think even just like the basics of that, right? We're reminding people of that. I think people might be like, oh, wait, it's really only one more game, almost certainly, right? Like that's worth a reminder.
Yeah, it's not like we're not tacking on an extra 5 games to the season. That's why I feel like it is overblown a little bit the way it's getting discussed. I think the depth conversation is less about like, oh, you're playing maybe 17 games now, everyone's going to be hurt. It's more about like having to keep your best guys a little fresher and like playing more depth throughout the season, I think is the conversation. And Ohio State has not really done that a ton under Ryan Day. Like even in games that are blowouts, they still keep their starters in probably longer than most teams do. So I think they need to embrace the opportunities to put the younger guys on the field. And they keep talking about like the beginning of this schedule it's kind of a build up to the Oregon game. You have Michigan State before that, but aside from that, like it's a couple of easy, I think, games for Ohio State, and they're talking about guys having to play, young guys who haven't played a lot having to play early on in the season. So they're talking, I think, the way you hope they would be about playing depth. We'll see if they actually do it because they've not really put it in the practice under Ryan Day.
Okay, so here is the final point I want to make. In 2014, when Ohio State won the national championship, Ohio State in 15 games, the defense played 1,073 snaps and the offense played 1,118 snaps. Last year, Michigan, in going 15-0, Michigan's defense played 888 snaps and their offense played 945. So in the same number of games, Michigan played 195 fewer snaps on defense and 173 fewer snaps on offense in the same number of games.
Mm-hmm.
If you, based on the number of snaps Ohio State played last year in 13 games, if you average it, right, snaps per game, Ohio State, if it plays a 17-game season in 2024, which like would be a very, like, that's like if they make the Big Ten championship game, they lose to Oregon, they then host a first-round playoff game and have to play 4 playoff games. That's how they would play 17. In a 17-game season, based on the average number of snaps per game they played last year, they would wind up playing 4 more offensive snaps than Ohio State played in 2014 in a 15-game season and 32 more defensive snaps. It's basically the same. Yeah. So in 17 games, they'd play the same number of snaps Ohio State played in 15 games 10 years ago. Like exactly. And this is the whole conversation that dominated the beginning of last year with the clock rules and the change in fewer snaps per game. Like people were wound up about that in the moment, but it was actually proactively doing something about this issue that if that's what we're talking about, man, it's a grind. There's more. You play more. You actually don't.
Right.
You don't. you actually there's more weeks, but there's not going to be any more plays to get hurt. Is that a point worth making?
I think it's a point worth making. I do wonder. I think the math for Ohio State might change a little bit there with their offense. I think they're going to run more plays probably with Chip Kelly. One, because they'll play faster, somewhat faster. Two, because I think they'll be more efficient and have more sustained drives than their offense had last year. So, but it's not like I'm not talking about adding 500 extra snaps to the ledger here. So no, it is a point worth making that we're not actually talking about Ohio State playing that much more football than it's played previously.
And so then here's my second point of this. Obviously, we know the JT Barrett, Cardale Jones situation of 2014. The rest of the team was 1,000% healthy the entire year. Mm-hmm. They played 12 guys on defense the whole year. Nobody else played. They had 7 guys on defense play 900 snaps or more, which is insane. The 12th guy was Raekwon McMillan, rotating at middle linebacker with Curtis Grant. Otherwise, it was the same 11 every down of every game. That's made crazy. It the whole year. They made it. Raekwon McMillan was 12th on the defensive snaps with 480 snaps. The next guy had 234. Tyvis Powell played 1,000 snaps of defense that year. It's insane. Joey Bosa played 900 snaps on the defensive line. So, they didn't need it before. So maybe, it's insane. Yeah. Nobody got hurt and nobody got tired. So, and for real, it was like the Bama game, the Michigan game. It's the same defensive guys the whole year. On offense, they played 16 guys for the 11 spots. The 5 offensive linemen all played 1,000 snaps. Nobody missed anything the whole year. Nobody missed anything. At receiver, they played 5 receivers for 3 spots. So they played Jalen Marshall, Michael Thomas, Devin Smith, and Evan Spencer. And then they also worked in Corey Smith a decent amount. Okay. Yeah. So that's their 5. They played Nick Vannett and Jeff Hireman at tight end the whole year. Ezekiel Elliott took practically every running back snap. He had 800 snaps as a running back, which is wild. And then they played the two quarterbacks. And that was it. So they played 5 offensive. And then the only other guy who played a little bit and then did get hurt was Dontre Wilson. So that was the only one, but then it was it didn't matter that they didn't have Dontre Wilson. So they played 5 offensive linemen. They played 5 receivers, 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, and a running back and a half. And they made it. So the bottom line is a 17-game national championship for Ohio State this year would be the same number of snaps as a 15-game national championship in 2014. And in 2014, they made it playing 0 depth, other than the fact that they had to play the 3rd-string quarterback, which makes it the most memorable, amazing story of depth and having a backup in Ohio State history. But it was 1 spot out of 22. Everywhere else, they were you play every down for 5 months. And the guy was yep, I'm good.
Yeah. No, but I would imagine that's an anomaly, right? For teams
so there's a lot of homework here. I did the same thing basically with 2019 Ohio State. And it's just not that different. It's not that different. Maybe in 2019, they have a little bit more of a defensive tackle rotation. Again, they're rotating receivers in 2019. But, Josh Allaby had to play 1 game for Brandon Bowen at right tackle, in the middle of that season. But it's very similar, where they put out 5 offensive linemen and had them play almost the whole time. Josh Myers didn't come off the field, right? Jonah Jackson didn't come off the field. Chase Young played a ton. So it's not, 2019's not quite as crazy as 2014, but it's not that far away. J.K. Dobbins played the whole year. They got to Master Teague, had to play a tiny little bit in the playoff, and it was okay. But
then JT got hurt. Yeah, J.K. got hurt in the Fiesta Bowl.
Well, yeah, and then he came back. But I mean, again, it's so anyway. I do think my official why I wanted to go in depth on this is I think it's 2-pronged. As you pointed out, I actually do think Ohio State's pretty deep, maybe everywhere except for the offensive line. Mm-hmm. And B, They might not need it. Like there's a very good chance they might not need it. I do not. Now, the one thing is like Michigan did a great job playing depth last year. And every comparison you want to make between last year's Michigan team and this year's Ohio State team, like that would be one where I'm curious to see. Do they try to, again, Michigan's playing 18 guys, 20 guys on defense, right? Like Mike Sainristil's playing half the number of snaps that Tyvis Powell played in 2014. So will Ohio State be proactive and try to be like Michigan, or do you just like play your dudes and hope that they're in good shape and they have good luck not getting injured?
I think you should be proactive.
Okay.
If you can, right? Like the state of the games dictates that too. Like Michigan didn't play very many close games last year, which affords you the luxury of doing that. Ohio State in seasons past has had plenty of games where they blow teams out. That wasn't really the case last year for them either. So like they have to put it on teams, I think, to really embrace playing their depth. But if they can, they have the opportunity. I would like to see them be more proactive about playing depth than I think they have been previously.
It's just in the end, and a credit. There's so many things in college football these days that don't connect. Everything's in a silo. It's like, hey, we do this thing and we do this thing. It's like, well, what if you took those two things into account and made a rule that helped, affected both of those? And college football is like, we don't have any rules. Mm-hmm. But the idea that they, in preparation for a 12-team playoff, they changed the clock rules to reduce the number of plays so that realistically, a 17-game national championship in 2024 will not require any more snaps than a 15-game national championship in 2014. That, I think, is a huge deal. And we can maybe give college football, because everybody was just complaining about it, right? Mm-hmm. It was the number one story of Ohio State football in September last year. Ryan Day's mad they don't have enough plays. It was actually a very good move that renders this discussion not nearly as important as I think people think it might be. Okay.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Tyler asks, he says, let's pretend Kyle McCord is still on the roster and they still bring Will Howard in. Where is McCord on the current depth chart based on his play last year? I think you could make an argument for him being anywhere from 1 to 3. So he could be leading this quarterback competition. He could be third in it. Where do you think Kyle McCord would be?
That's a good question. I think behind Will Howard. But I guess I could see the scenario where he'd also be behind Devin Brown, because there was a time last summer where he was behind Devin Brown, according to Ryan Day. So I think I'd say he'd be second, but behind Will, ahead of Devin, or maybe he and Devin are tied. But I certainly don't think that if he were here with Will Howard that he'd be the number one QB.
So do you think there has been a shift based in part on the quarterback play last year, maybe in part on the arrival of Chip Kelly, that Ohio State is now at a place where the two types of quarterbacks they want are either CJ Stroud or a guy who can really be a run threat? And that if you are not going to be a run threat, you better be a guy who's going to be the best rookie quarterback in NFL history. Like, you better be accurate processor, get it out, make every throw, solve problems before they happen. Otherwise, you got to be able to move. Is that like it certainly feels like that of the moment. Do you think it is a philosophical shift?
I do. Yeah. I think, ideally you're both. Ideally you're CJ against Georgia, but like that is I don't know, once every 20 years kind of quarterback maybe for Ohio State. But yeah, I think if you don't have the ability to problem solve in other ways, which is to say like use your legs, I don't know if you're going to be a quarterback that Ryan Day and Chip Kelly want to bring in here.
So based on that conversation, I think Kyle McCord would be third.
Yeah,
because they would have seen a year of, okay, he doesn't move as well as Will Howard or Devin Brown, and he doesn't seem like he's CJ Stroud, which is not an 100% indictment of Kyle McCord that he's not that. But if that's what they're looking for, then I think he's third. And I think the experience of playing him last year helped create a world where, like, the world has changed, right? The world of what Ohio State wants, expects, desires, needs from a quarterback, I do think is, if not significantly different than a year ago, at least moderately different. And it has moved away from what Kyle McCord is.
Yeah, it's like Ryan Day would probably describe it as like playmaking, maybe. Like I don't know if it's necessarily like you need to be able to keep the ball in a zone read and get me 6 yards kind of thing. But it's like, if a play breaks down, what do you do? And like the answer for Kyle McCord was like probably get sacked and fumble the ball. And I think like everyone in the room is like better suited to deal with that a little better, like or differently. Like it's funny to me, like Ryan Day several times this spring has said like all the guys in our quarterback room can move. And now it's funny to think like, well, what if Kyle McCord was in the room? Would he say like everyone in the room can move except for Kyle? What?
Yeah, we are like at 82% of good movers in the quarterback room. I can tell you who's not. I'm not going to tell you who's not, but we're just like, we're almost all the way there. The thing, it doesn't worry me because, like, again, like Julian Sayin might be both, right? Julian Sayin might be
There's a chance.
Aaron Nolan might be both. Might be like, hey, there's CJ Stroud with just a little more movement as part of the game. And maybe it's even what like Ryan Day and Chip Kelly will like require or suggest, like help the quarterback do. Again, it's not, CJ's not a statue, but again, like he just would rather throw it than run it. Do you have any fear of like, if the more you want a run threat, does it at all decrease your chances of finding the next CJ Stroud?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think if there's like a kid out there that is like CJ level processor, throw with anticipation kind of guy, and he like maybe is less athletic than the most athletic quarterback out there, and Ohio State has the opportunity to take both of them, they're taking the guy that has the processing, I think.
Okay. Oh, good. So no, and again, like right? It's like get different guys, right? Have different styles, like, right? So I don't. You give yourself options when you have quarterbacks with different skill sets. Okay, let's do one more before we take a break because we went long on the depth thing. So I want to give a shout out to our guy Jason M, who sent 12 questions.
Wow, good for him.
And like he was like 10 for 12 on like, we could talk about this. This is good. This is like, and he was like down and dirty football stuff, and he was like whacked out stuff. And it's like, this guy gets it. This guy gets the show. But it's not the Jason M show. We didn't hire him as a producer. I feel like if we would have used all 12, we would have had to like pay him. Yeah. So I picked a couple and I saved a couple. But one from him right now is, would Ohio State be better off if Jim Tressel or Urban Meyer in their primes were leading the program instead of Ryan Day right now? So best of Tress, best of Urban, versus this version of Ryan Day, which frankly, I think is the best version of Ryan Day, which is the whole give up play calling culture, get NIL straightened out. Like, I think Ryan Day is in a good spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have the best of Tressel and the best of Urban because I know what that gets you. I don't know what the best of Ryan Day gets you yet. And like, there's the separate conversation of like the best of Urban, like, coach his dudes as hard as you can coach a football team. Does that resonate with like today's athlete? I know we're not that far removed from Urban being in his prime, but I do think like the athlete has changed quite a bit, and like there's more autonomy for players too that I think might make that a little more difficult way to coach, or at least like coach a championship team. I wasn't around Tressel to know like how his style compared to Urban. So like, you're probably better suited to answer that than I am, but I'll just rely on that. Like, I know the best of both those guys get you a national championship, and I don't know yet whether or not the best of Ryan Day gets you one. So I would pick the other two.
So I think you started to like list the reasons for why I think the answer could be you would take this Ryan Day. And it is, again, about the world changing. It is not about the coaching acumen of Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer, who both are national champions. And you cannot dispute their records at Ohio State. So Jim Tressel in the NIL world, Jim Tressel in a world where you are like working with the collectives and you are like figuring out payroll and you have to pay guys and this third string guy wants to leave. Are you going to pay him to keep like, I don't know. I don't know. Cause I think sometimes there were even times with them. And like the one that always stands out to me is like Chantrell Henderson, which was like a great, huge offensive lineman from Minnesota. And like they sent Dick Tressel because Dick Tressel was a Minnesota guy to Minnesota to like recruit Chantrell Henderson and like Dick Tressel. It's just of a time. But Dick Tressel, it's like to me in my head, and this is not even a paraphrase, I'm making this up, but it's like, yes, we were talking about that rap and hip hop stuff. Boy, I do love that beat. And it's like, what are we doing? The world is changing. This is not. And then he went to Miami. And it was like, You think he went to Miami? It's like Dick Tressel's doing like a hip hop, a hip bibby, and a hip hop bibbity boo. And it's like, this is the
you
best
heard of the Sugar Hill Gang? These guys are pretty good. Yeah.
So like that was like as that world was changing, right? And then like when the world changed and they went and got Terrell Pryor, like the thing that Terrell Pryor ended up doing was like blowing up the program. So it's like they weren't like necessarily great at that either. So like so the NIL perspective, I don't know about Jim Tressel in an NIL world. And that's not about Jim Tressel, that's about NIL. The portal world, Urban. If you're a champion, you're eating steak or you're eating a hot dog. Guys eating hot dogs might want to transfer. And his program, like people, when he got here from Florida, like the criticisms were like, he treats players differently. And he was like, heck yeah, I treat players differently. There are winners and there are guys who are not yet winners. And why would I treat them the same? But in this world, those guys leave.
Yeah.
And so there has been like, a part of me thinks that like Ryan Day is like kind of in the middle of Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer. And in a world where you have to navigate NIL and you have to navigate the portal right now, and you have to have culture and you have to recruit and you have to scheme. I think Ryan Day might be the answer because he's in the middle. Because I think he'd be better. Like Urban would be great at NIL. And Tress would be great at the portal. Tress would like be putting his arms around third stringers and talking to him about why Ohio State's the place for them. And Urban would be robbing banks. Like he acts like he doesn't want to do it, but like he would do whatever it takes in NIL to recruit. Would he not?
Yeah.
And I think Day might just have enough of each that the middle is the answer, because I think they're good enough in NIL, and I think they've gotten a little more aggressive in the portal. And the guys they're losing, they're not losing first stringers. I think my answer might be Day. I think my answer might be Day, and I understand why people wouldn't say that. But again, and if we're talking like, if we take those things away, then I think you have to take Urban and Tressel over Day. To your point, because they've done it. Jim Tressel has done it. How did Jim Tressel go 14-0 with that team? It's unbelievable. How did Urban Meyer go 14-1 with that team? It's unbelievable. And win national championship. It's unbelievable. You can't believe it happened. Is Ryan Day going to go beat Bama? I don't know. Is Ryan Day going to beat Miami? What are we talking about? I don't know. But I think he might be the right mix of the two to navigate the world.
I can see that. Like, I don't disagree with you. I the way you kind of laid it out, maybe makes me want to pick Tress ahead of the group. Because the thing that's hard, it's like, and I've said it too. It's like Urban Meyer wouldn't exist in college football. It's like he might adapt. Like you don't like we can't say that definitively. And the same thing for Jim Tressel. And it's also like not Jim Tressel now. It's Jim Tressel in his prime, which was 15 years ago, right? It's a different personality. So I don't know. I do kind of think that two guys who are among the, I don't know, 15 to 20 best coaches to ever do it would find a way to make it work in today's landscape. And if I believe that, and I've seen those guys like go through a season and get a team prepared and do what it needs to do on the field to win a national title, I still think I'd be inclined to take those two guys.
Yeah. It's a fascinating, like I would love to like survey. Tell you, man, Jason brought it. I would like to survey like the Ohio State beat with this question. I could see like you could have a 20-person roundtable and be like, well, I think Tress this and Urban that and Day that, because I do think on the continuum of coaching, they're different enough. It's like, well, like we want to do is like, well, why not bring in Woody? Would you want prime Woody Hayes? And it's like, what are we talking about? Woody Hayes is one of the 5 greatest coaches in college football history. But would he be your pick today? Right? Would he adapt enough, or would he be like, what are we? So like, I don't.
Yeah.
So there's a version of that. It's a really interesting discussion. So anyway,
It is.
I need a break. Whew. We do it like it's not even. I don't even pretend it's rapid fire anymore. It's in-depth 14 questions.
That's right.
It's 20 minutes a question times 14, whatever that is, 280 minutes of content. When we come back, we have a lot more to talk about, including what you guys thought about the spring game. We'll do all that next on Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. Bill, we were having a discussion like we're building out the studio in my house, and Berm was over here, and we're talking about lights and stuff, and like we're going to like fancify it. You and I went to IKEA to shop for a table.
We did.
It was good. It was like we were a couple. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, it was nice. It was lovely. Yeah, we looked at some kitchen stuff. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
We also have been to Waco to the Chip and Joanna store together. What's the name of that show then? Make your house
Fixer
pretty?
Upper.
Fixer Upper.
Yeah.
So we've been to that store together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does kind of make me want to renovate a house with you.
Oh, we could do that. Let's do it.
Like we should renovate a house. We'll buy a house cheap, renovate it in a Kings of the North style, and then record there.
Yeah. What's this room for? Oh, it's a podcast studio. How about this room? Also a podcast studio.
Yeah. And then this room has 14 TVs, and it's where we watch games every Saturday, and we just have people over to hang out.
That's right.
Kings of the North house. We'll ask our boss. Our boss is like super into it and like a great dude and like super generous. Like we are, I think we're like 20% in the range where if we really pitched it well, this is why we need to buy a KOTN house.
The house.
We could, and we'd buy like a very rundown house, and then we would make Berm renovate it.
Yeah.
Berm would be just walking around like in a construction belt all day and occasionally making recruiting calls. You'd be like, ring! Oh, sorry, I got to talk to a 17-year-old. Ring!
We could turn it into content too. We can do this old house with Berm. I'd watch that.
Do you know how many people would watch that? 1 million people would watch that. It would just be Berm. It's like we're standing in my guest bedroom talking about what kind of light to get, and he just starts. You and Berm start riffing on Dashboard Confessional, and it's like this is great content. Again, I just don't believe in having conversations you can't turn into content. So if Berm's going to build a house for us, we're definitely recording it. Also, though, I'm so hot right now. So we have to get a fan in here. I'm melting already, and it's not even the new lights. All right, Steve asks, if Ohio State draws Michigan in an early playoff round, do you think the NCAA might consider adding a provision that teams can't play a conference opponent until later rounds or the championship game? Of course, if every team is from the SEC or Big Ten, as Steve points out, that could be difficult. But like that idea of trying to avoid that, at least in the first round. Do you think that's a worthwhile thing for the committee to have in its head, or to maybe even put in the parameters of the playoff?
Yeah, I think so. I think I might have said that before. I can't remember if it was here or on Kings of the North, but I would like to see them do that. Basketball does that. You can't play a conference opponent in the first round of the NCAA tournament. You can play them in the second round, but they won't make you play each other in the first round. And it's much more difficult with football. I understand that, and especially if we get to a place, as you said, with 90% of the field is from two conferences, but as much as they can, I guess, right? I mean, maybe it's not like a hard and fast rule. You can't play a common opponent in a rematch in the first round, but if they're able to massage the bracket to avoid it without like screwing a team over who should be playing at home, then yeah, I think they should try to do it.
And I think without putting it in the bracket, I think they can secretly have that conversation in the room.
Yeah, right.
If you're looking at, I don't know what, if Oregon wins the Big Ten and you're looking at like a Penn State Ohio State game at 8-9, and it's like, all right, could we make Penn State the 10 so that they play Ole Miss instead of playing Ohio State again? I think that's worthwhile. And I think even if you're not supposed to, I, as a committee member, would encourage us to do that, like secretly, like, come on, like, what are we doing here? Like, it's all kind of made up anyway. Right. There's no formula. It's just what people think, like, what are we doing? So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor for the first round. It also does lead, I think, to the point of, if it would ever truly break north, south, AFC, NFC kind of stuff, you would potentially set up a world like, if you were in a 14-team playoff and it was like there were only 2 conferences and it was basically like, give us the best 7 of your conference and the best 7 of your conference, it would either be each conference just plays itself to create a champion, like AFC, NFC, and it doesn't matter what the rankings are. Figure it out and then send us your best team, and that's the championship game. Or you cross everything over, and everything is the best versus 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, 3 versus, like a first round that was like, you know what I mean? Like, say there were the buys, and it's like the 3 of the SEC versus the 7 of the Big Ten, and the 3 of the Big Ten versus the 7 of the SEC. Like, that was like, you guaranteed 4 crossover games in the first round. Like, how awesome would that be?
That'd be sweet, because then you just would leave the door open then for, like, to truly determine which region was better, right? You get to the Final Four, and it's like, oh, all 4 teams are from the Big Ten, or all 4 teams are from the North, right? So no, that'd be cool. I don't think they would ever do that. I think if it does get to the point where you're talking about, I think it would be like an NFC, AFC model. I don't like no sport crosses it up, right? Like, everyone is like siloed in their conference until the championship, right?
But like, wouldn't that be? That'd be kind of fun. Like,
it would be.
If it was like, the Celtics as the 1 seed are playing the Kings as the Western 8 seed, and Oklahoma City as the 1 seed is playing Miami as the Eastern 8 seed, like that. There's a part of that is like very appealing to me. Yeah, probably the part of me that wants to make everything in life north versus south, but that might just be me. All right. I have answered a version of this question 50 times since I started covering Ohio State, but I always think it's worthwhile because people continue to ask it, and I just like to allow our viewers and listeners to know where we're coming from. I think is worth it. It's Dan who says, you 2 and Austin came from other states but have been here for a while now. Are you guys now mainly Ohio State fans or still bigger fans of somewhere else at heart? Bill, I'll let you go first.
It's a good question. I wouldn't say like I'm a fan of somewhere else. Like, I went to Penn State, which I think people know, but like, I just kind of turned it off. Like, and people can, I guess, choose to not believe me when I say that, but it's true. I don't really root for anybody in college football. I just kind of watch college football and enjoy it. And I wouldn't like say that I've become like an Ohio State fan in the sense of like I'm cheering in the press box, or if they lose, it ruins my week, and if they win, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, I don't consume Ohio State football that way, but the people in the program, like, you become fans of for sure. Like, someone that you get to cover for 4 or 5 years, like, accomplishes something awesome, whether that's at Ohio State or when they go off to the NFL draft. Like, that makes me happy. That's cool to watch for sure. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of my view on it. I don't. When I became a college football reporter, which is what I've wanted to do, like, since I got into journalism, I think I just like made the conscious decision to not be a fan of any team, because I wanted to try to be able to do the job, I think, as best as I could. So that's kind of how I approached it.
Yeah, and like, I'm old enough when I started out in this business, it was like you clearly were not a fan. Like, that was not how this worked if you were going to be a journalist. And now clearly media has evolved, and there are a lot of people who cover teams very well who make it very clear that they are a fan of that team. Maybe sometimes there's even more people who cover teams like that than there are people now who cover it more from a distance. But I agree with everything you said. And I've always thought it is a little more helpful that, like, when you're mad as a fan or when you're excited as a fan, that like you're not supposed to be rational. Like, that's not what you're being.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody then who is like, I'm coming at this from a rational standpoint, it doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. And it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily agree with me, but I'm coming at it from, I'm trying to be pragmatic and objective. And while you're angry or super excited, I'm maybe going to say, okay, like that was a great win, but here's a couple other things this team still needs to do well at while you're on your 8th beer running around the block. Or after a devastating loss and you're ready to like set all of your jerseys on fire, it's like, listen, like that other team's pretty good and Ohio State still does these things well. Like I find that helpful, but I have noticed this in one thing in my life, and this will not surprise anybody. There are like my Twitter feed at this point is two things. My Twitter feed is either like the world is ending, everything is terrible, like real life stuff, or there's a new cupcake at the bakery on Main Street in Disney World. Like that's all, like everything is like, there are so many sites that cover Disney World in a way that's like, they changed from rainbow sprinkles to white sprinkles. And here's a 300-word story about the sprinkle change at the cupcake shop. And I'm like, I love this content.
Why don't you work for those websites? What are you doing?
I think they do it for free because they love it. But also, like, why do you think I'm going to move to Florida eventually?
Yeah.
So sometimes when those sites are like, hey, they built this new ride and it's not very good, I'm like, why don't you shut up about the new ride? I love it. I don't want to hear your pragmatic, objective approach to the Disney World ride. I'm just a fan. And then I catch myself and I say, oh, wait. There actually are times when like fans don't want objective pragmatism.
Yes.
They want a fan view. And like, I think in that world, it doesn't mean that you and I should or are going to then give them that view. But then it's also very nice when there are places that do provide that view. And so there's 100%. A lot of places that cover Ohio State from different viewpoints. And then that way a fan can say, maybe I want this now. Maybe I want a criticism of why this ride design should be better. Or maybe I just want a review of whether the sprinkles are awesome or excellent. And I get that.
Yeah, I guess I get it too, because I mean, I'm still like very much a fan of like Philadelphia professional sports. And there are times where like I want to go to the rational guy who covers the Phillies to tell me like why these things are happening and contextualize things. And I want to go to the other person that wants to fire the entire team and you know, burn the stadium to the ground in April. Like I can find myself in either one of those moods at various points of the season following the teams that I love. The thing about it is like you and I could be that person if we wanted to. It would just be fake. So like I don't want to feign anger to give people what I think they want. And I'm not saying if you are angry, I'm not saying you're wrong. And there are people who cover the team, as you said, like through the lens of being a fan, that I think at times is like very helpful for Ohio State fans. And I'm glad that those people exist to cover the team and like kind of balance out the way that we do it. I just don't want to be fake. So like, I didn't grow up in Ohio. I didn't grow up an Ohio State fan. I would feel like I'm almost doing a disservice to the people that follow us if I like pretended to be one, just to like, I don't know, think I was giving people what they want. Yeah.
But again, as you said, you end up like hoping for good things for good people. But the thing that like fans don't want to hear is like there are like good people on other teams. And it's, you know what I mean? Like it's pretty awesome for Blake Corum that Michigan went 15-0 and won a national championship, right? I'm not going to pretend I know Blake Corum, but that guy like was maybe in line to win the Heisman Trophy and got hurt at the end of 2022. And then his backup came in and ripped off 2 75-yard touchdowns against Ohio State. And then they blew a game against TCU in the playoff that if they had Blake Corum, they probably would have won.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like Blake Corum didn't go to the NFL and he stayed at Michigan and they kept him there with NIL. And then he didn't have as good of an individual season, but he was a leader of a national championship team. Like that's a pretty awesome story for that person, right? So in the end, whenever a team wins, there are like good people and bad people on every team. And so there's always something nice happening. It's just not for the jersey that you root for. But like, again, there are people watching this now who are like throwing up. They're like, all right, I'm out. I'm Mr. Objective Doug. I'm a journalist. I was with him until he was like, I'm happy for Blake Corum. And then I cut the cord.
Yeah, I would like the record to show that you said that and not me. I'm not going to tell Ohio State fans they should be happy for Blake Corum because they shouldn't be. They're Ohio State fans.
No, exactly. They shouldn't be. And also, he had a vacuum cleaner store with Connor Stallions. So, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like, maybe don't open a vacuum cleaner store. That's the fan answer. Okay. This is, I always think to myself, like, I send up an outline of the show. We send it out, and then I say what's going to happen, and then I forget. And so our producer, Mike Yarostowski, I'm sure is like, Doug forgot a thing again. We do have a tech subscriber survey. And when we talked about the quarterback battle, I did want to touch on where fans are with this quarterback battle right now, Bill. So one of them is, who do you think is going to be Ohio State's starting quarterback in week 1? This is a thing, like, we talk about it on a bunch of different shows. We don't have to go over it a ton, but just by the replies, people are like very much in a world where they think Will Howard is going to be the starting quarterback for this team. So Will Howard got 77% of that vote. And then next was like, I don't know. So it was 77% for Will Howard, like 13%. What was it? 8%?
18%.
18% for not sure. And Devin Brown got what, like 5% or something?
5. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, are you surprised? 77, 18, and 5. Are you so for players, it's 77% Will Howard, 5% Devin Brown. There was, I think, a time during spring practice, maybe in the beginning, where like the Devin Brown percentage would have been higher. What do you think of this result right now?
Yeah, I think like before spring ball, the Will Howard percentage would have been close to 100, and in the middle of spring ball, probably would have been more for not more than Will Howard, but more for Devin Brown. This feels right to me. I'd be curious if we could like break out the 18% who aren't sure to ask them who else is in their head, like if it's only Will Howard and Devin Brown, or if they're like got a little bit of Julian Sain in their mind as well when they're pondering that. But this, I maybe I'd expect it to be a tad bit higher for Will Howard, but this feels more or less right to me.
Okay. And so then a second one, and I didn't send a graphic for this, but I said, how do you feel about Ohio State's quarterback position right now? And from best to worst, I said excellent, good, great, okay, uncertain, or worried. Of those 6, what do you think won, Bill? Excellent, great, good, okay, uncertain, worried.
Good.
Good one. Good one, yeah. Convincingly, with like more than half the vote. It went good, great, okay, uncertain, excellent, worried. Excellent and worried, which were the two ends, basically got nothing. Mm-hmm. So there's nobody who's like, boom, nailed it, ready to roll, and there's nobody who's freaking out. But still, like, it's the third best answer. It's not excellent or great. Like, it's good. Again, that probably seems about right. And again, that may in the end be enough for this team to win a national title.
Yeah, I think so. I think good is probably enough. I was curious when you sent that out, like how many people would say uncertain, because I think that maybe is a fair response as well. But if I were filling out that survey, I think I would have said good.
Yeah, I think it's, again, whether it was by design or not, I just I don't know how, with what we saw, and again, a lot of the stuff for fans is based on like what we guys from the media are able to see and report. There's what everybody sees in the spring game, then there's a couple open practices, and it's the reports that we give. I don't know what would have gotten you to excellent, based on what we were allowed to see and the way they let things rip. And I don't know what would have gotten you to worried of like, oh my God, so I think just nice and in the middle. And hopefully I think for people like moving toward better feelings. Okay. So I want to talk about the spring game a little bit. We talked about this. We did a spring game post-game show, and I'm interested in sort of like the structure of the game. So I asked people like, what do you kind of want out of the spring game? We did a survey question, but I also had some people write in. So this is Joseph says, we want to see the Stars show out. That's all we want. I wanted to see Jeremiah Smith go for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I didn't feel like he was given that many opportunities to do it. I want to see a running back break off a 60-yard run. I also want it to be a fun carnival-like atmosphere. I feel like it should be a celebration of the end of spring ball, and the coaches should let the second half be wacky. Let's see Jack Sawyer at quarterback for a play. Let's see a double reverse pass or something crazy. Right now, you can turn the game off at halftime because the second half are just going to run into the line. So the idea of like Stars in the first half, wacky in the second half, I think is frankly, excellent suggestion and a way to look at this.
Yeah.
Ross said this: I feel like the spring game is similar to the Pro Bowl. It was better when I was younger. I used to get excited about players, and that has fallen off. It was fun seeing how far Cardale could throw the ball. That was when they had like a little quarterback competition at halftime the one year with like Cardale Jones and Troy Smith and stuff. It was really cool. I watch every game live, then I watch it again on Monday. I'm that obsessed, and I was outside playing with my son named Gray by this. How about that, Gray? By the second quarter of the spring game. So this is like Ross is obsessed with Ohio State football. He breaks down every game. He gave up on the spring game in the second quarter. And then Keith said this, too many feelings to convey, but I would love to see a more intensely competitive environment, including full contact, but I don't think the risks are worth any possible benefits. I don't want to see a star sidelined with a soft tissue injury or a player nursing a broken bone in their hands. If someone could show me proof that the type of practicing in the spring is if you practice tougher, it makes you better in the season, then he'd be for it. But basically, it's like he'd love competition, but he understands why it's not. So what do you want? What do you want? Because I think the spring game right now is really just okay. And we watched a variety of spring games for Kings of the North, Pitt and Purdue and Penn State. Lots of different teams played this past Saturday. Pitt basically played a full game and had tackling. Some teams did like two-hand touch. Some team like Ohio State was kind of in the middle. Like what would you ideally want to see, and what do you think of these responses?
I think if you're putting the game on national television and also you're charging people to come to Ohio Stadium to watch it, like I don't want to see thud. Like if you just want to do thud, then like play 7-on-7. Because I think if you play 7-on-7, then you like open yourself up to some fireworks, right? You can just like watch the receivers and DBs go at it. You don't have the line involved, which I think is fine. And like you just said, like admit, like we're not watching a football game. We're watching like a celebration of the end of the spring, as someone put it earlier. I think I'd rather watch that than watch like Trevion Henderson run for 3 yards and somebody tags him on his hip, and then like you get disappointed because he wasn't allowed to turn that into a 60-yard touchdown run when maybe he could have. So I don't like that. I think there's an opportunity to just like line up and play real football. Like a lot of teams do it. Ohio State has done it in the past. Like it's a violent sport. It comes with the territory. It's not like you're needlessly risking players. You're practicing. And when you practice, you should be playing football. So I would like to see that, but I do like the idea of like first half is more or less a football game. Second half is a bunch of shenanigans, and maybe the shenanigans include some 7-on-7. Maybe it includes some of the stuff we see because they don't play the Pro Bowl now, right? The Pro Bowl is just like a skills competition, right. Like some of that stuff. And there's like scoring involved or whatever, like because they score the Pro Bowl too. Later, there's a winner and a loser. So maybe that could be more appealing to people. Like it's just like I do feel bad for people who like pay to go to the spring game and then maybe Ohio State under delivers a little bit on what people are expecting. Because not every spring game costs money.
They used to deliver. Like they really like, so I do think that the idea of like, if you could do 2 or 3 drives of like ones versus ones, and let them go at it a little bit, and then turn it into a carnival. I do love the idea. Like, and teams do this. Like, you see things all the time where like they do a thing where they hand a ball to a kid and let him run for a touchdown, and the crowd loves that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They have special moments. Like you have so many of the former players back. Like, what if you had a thing where, like you're saying, you had Denzel Ward and Chase Young and Michael Thomas trying to kick field goals, or you know what I mean? Like that, like lean into that, because when you're getting the second and third teamers out there, like they need run, but also like you had 14 practices to do that. So I think they need a boost of creativity, frankly. I think they do. I think probably to wish for more competition, the injury risk is you're never going to get there. But I think they need to jazz it up a little bit. And as you said, if you're charging money, you're there to entertain. And I don't think they're maximizing that right now, and they would have an opportunity to do it. Did you watch the spring game? Yes, watched on TV, 74%. No, 13%. Yes, I was there in person, 13%. So that's still, 87% of the people who are, these are the loyal, dedicated, educated tech subscribers who love Ohio State. 87% watch the spring game. Do you think it's currently interesting and worthwhile? Yes, it's a great chance to see the Buckeyes. 73%. No, it's not that interesting. 27%. So this is a quarter of the people. Like, I would be in the 27% right now, but it's not like a plague. It's not like fans are marching on Ohio Stadium with torches saying, make the spring game more like a carnival. So
I did like, obviously I was there, so I didn't get to watch it. Rewatching it, I actually kind of like the broadcast. Like, I like that Ryan Day was like talking a lot behind the play. I like that Jim Knowles was calling plays. I like that, like, for a moment you could hear Ryan Day talking to Lincoln Keenholz in the huddle. Like,
yeah.
As a TV presentation, I thought this was probably better than most spring games, or like most recent spring games, but that doesn't mean that they can't tweak the format of things.
No, I've watched things like Dabo Sweeney, I think sometimes at Clemson, has just like done like play-by-play of the game for 2 hours. Like, he's practically on the broadcast team. And so when you can learn about your team, right? When you have, a coach explaining a play call, or a coach explaining why they think this player's doing this or whatever, that can be really interesting. So I do think that's a valid point, that actually anymore, if that's what the broadcast is going to be, then it's like, don't go. Because, like, frankly, it's better on TV, because you didn't hear that at the game. You didn't. So the final thing is, what would you prefer for the Ohio State spring game? I gave a lot of choices. The thing that won with more than 50% of it was make it a scrimmage against another team, like a MAC opponent.
Yeah.
Second was make it more like a real game with drafting 2 teams and tackling. Third was relax. It's a spring game. It's not a big deal. Fourth was make it more fun and like a carnival. And fifth was keep it as is. So really, people would be more interested in a game. And like, Ryan Day has talked enough about, like, the NFL has preseason games. I kind of wish college football had preseason games. I don't know that you're ever going to get there in August, but I think you could get there in April. I just, and we talked about this on the show after the spring game, but I don't know. You tell Miami of Ohio or Toledo or whatever to come down, and like, Ohio State's going to play the ones for 2 drives, and we're going to play real football. And then Ohio State's going to play all backups. This is Ohio State's backups against the MAC first team guys. And like, you kind of play a game, don't hit the quarterback, but otherwise play a game. I don't know. Like, that's kind of appealing to me. And I don't know what would be bad about that.
I don't know what would be either. I know Ryan Day, when he has talked about that, has expressed concern about like NFL players, but like know better how to take care of each other in settings like that than maybe college players do. But I also think that's probably shortchanging college players. Like, I think they would know how to protect each other, mainly the quarterbacks, in a situation like that. And I think I've talked about this before. I might have even mentioned it after the spring game when we were doing the live show. Like, I have been like borderline infatuated with the idea the last few years of like an Ohio football day. Like, football means so much to Ohio. All the teams in Ohio should play each other. Like, there should be a built-in week in the college football season where all the teams in Ohio play each other. And maybe that's not feasible and could probably be becoming less so with the way that college football is changing. But why can't you do that in the spring? Why can't that be the third Saturday every April is like football in Ohio day, where all of the Division I programs in the state, and I guess Youngstown State, scrimmage each other, and this, you just like rotate through it, and like, that seems doable to me. I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Yeah, that would be a festival, like a football festival. God,
yeah.
You're sponsored by the podcast and Kings of the North.
Yeah,
that's like our boss. Hey, boss, could we sponsor? Take like a couple million, but like, do you think we could pull it together?
Can we sponsor 8 football scrimmages?
Yeah. All right. So that's it for the spring game. I don't want to obsess about it, but I think Ohio State could have a meeting about it. I think Ohio State could have a spring game meeting. What can we do to make a little bit of a better product? And I do think the idea of half competitive, half wacky is the way to go. All right, let's go to the offensive line, because Shannon is here for you, Landis. Shannon says, my question relates to the offensive line. Is it possible, with the quarterback play that we have, that there's a realistic scenario, if we figure out right guard, that our O-line becomes a strength of Ohio State and not a weakness? In that scenario, with a big run game, do you think Ohio State would go to more of a Michigan play style from last year? Just like grind people down. You think it could be a strength?
I think it could be not a weakness. I guess. Like, do I think there's a world where like the best thing about Ohio State football is its offensive line this year? No. but I think it can be better than it was last year and not be a liability. Yeah. Like I don't know if I'm twisting the question too much there, but I think so. Like I actually feel quite good about the left side of the line coming out of spring. Um, and like I like Seth McLaughlin at center, and if they can find the right combo on the right side, then yeah, I think it could become a reliable part of the offense. Maybe is the way I would put it.
Like if we went through, how good do you think Josh Simmons could be?
I think his ceiling is like a guy that maybe could be like a late day 2 NFL draft pick, maybe like a third round pick.
Do you think Donovan Jackson has a chance to be like the best guard in college football this year?
I have long thought that, and I think he's not quite lived up to that. So like I hesitate to keep saying it. So maybe something a little short of that, but still very good.
Because the thing about it is, like, when you talk about a strength, again, you just like compare Ohio State to itself. When you think about an Ohio State offensive line in 2019 that had Josh Myers, NFL second round pick, that had Jonah Jackson, like awesome NFL player, right? And like awesome NFL player, that had Wyatt Davis, who was an All-American, hasn't been as good in the NFL, but was like an absolute real dude, right? That had Thayer Munford, right? Like that's like and you think about like 2014, it's like Taylor Decker, like real dude. Pat Elflein, mid-round pick. Billy Price, eventual first-round pick, right? That's like Billy Price and Taylor Decker are first-round picks on that offensive line. Like, are there going to be first-round picks on this offensive line? Like, I don't
think there's a first-round pick on this offensive line, no.
And it's like, and you think about a world where like Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones were just here and wound up like starting as rookie tackles in the NFL and playing well. It's like, okay, like that, when you talk about like the line as a strength, like that's the context to me. And I just don't see this line getting there. And so could it be fine? Could it be good enough? Could it be not a weakness? Absolutely. But like, could it be like we're going to lean on the line to like win a game this week? I don't think that's in the cards.
Yeah. I guess the one thing, because I agree with that, but the one thing which I was looking the question too about like the changing identity of the offense, right? I do think they're going to run the ball more. I think Chip Kelly has done a pretty good job throughout his career of like cultivating an edge with his offensive line and like a physicality that I think has become the identity of some of his previous teams. So like I could see that happening. But I wouldn't, I mean, I don't know that I'd bet on it, but like, I do think they're going to run the ball really well this year. Like I said that, I think they're going to lead the country in running, in rushing yards, Power 5 teams in rushing yards. So I guess if I believe that, then I believe the offensive line can become a strength. But I don't think it's going to get to the point where like it measures up with like the best offensive lines we've seen at Ohio State. But I think you can be something short of that and still become a strength.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends what the context is. Like, are they going to win the Joe Moore Award? Are they going to be like the first thing that you think about? Like when you think about Michigan last year, like what do you think about? Don't you think about the offensive line and the defense? Like, and JJ McCarthy might be. Did you see a mock draft that had JJ? I saw a mock draft that had JJ McCarthy going to
oh,
Washington.
Really? I watched read Dane Brugler's on Wednesday. He had him third, I think, or fourth. I can't remember. The first 4 picks, I think, were quarterbacks.
How does that affect your view of like how we think about Michigan from last year? Because I think it was like, you know, they have 2 good running backs with Corum and Edwards. They're 7 deep on the offensive line with NFL players. They have a really good defense, and like they're just gonna like grind you down and control you. But it turns out, by the way, they had a top 5 pick at quarterback that they're just kind of like, we don't need that much from you. Like, it's not that they couldn't do it. It's that they didn't want it or need it because they were so good at the other things.
I kind of think it's that he couldn't do it. Like,
but then how is he going to go this high? What?
I don't know. How did Zach Wilson go too? You know what it makes? NFL teams are wrong all the time. I think they're going to be wrong on JJ McCarthy. I think they're going to be wildly wrong on JJ McCarthy.
What are they seeing though? They're just seeing the out of pocket rip down the middle, like playmaking, good mobility.
He's a really good athlete that I think
he's a really good athlete.
Yeah, that I think was not always on display at Michigan the way they played offense. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Last quick break. We have a couple more things to wrap. Oh, you know what? I do want to do this though, because this is the last texter question that we asked. And this is related to like how good you think the offensive line is going to be. I said, like, do you want a portal tackle? Basically, is what I asked him. And of course, the middle answer always wins. So the choices were you must get a transfer portal tackle. Ohio State must do that. A transfer portal tackle would be nice, but Ohio State's okay without one. Or don't get one, roll with these guys. Would be nice, 70%. Must get one, 27%. Roll with these guys, 3%. So 7 out of 10 is like, it'd be nice, but it's not a must. But also it's like 9-1 must versus definitely no. So what would your answer have been?
Would be nice because like the guy's not out there yet, in my opinion. It's funny to me. Like I get it. It's like, it's the way Twitter works. I don't think the whole Ohio State fan base is this way, but like every time an offensive lineman pops into the portal, I see people like, Ohio State's got to go get this guy. It's like, do you know anything about that player? Or you just know that he's an offensive lineman? The guy for Savion Washington from Colorado, it got replaced by a transfer at Colorado, and people want like Ohio State. Like, no, that's not what Ohio State's looking for. Or like some G5 lineman who was like the 5th best offensive lineman on his team, who's like, I don't understand it. Like, I'm not saying that Ohio State's offensive line is awesome. I'm just saying, like, if they're going to go get one, it needs to be an upgrade. It's not just a warm body they need to bring in and put on the offensive line. So I'm in the would be nice category until like a no-brainer ends up in the portal, and then I'll probably be in the like, you got to go get that guy category. But for right now, that guy doesn't exist.
I think I'm in the would be nice category because I think they should get a second team tackle if they can't get a starter. I would get a guy.
Like, what's the sales pitch? Like, I just, this seems incredibly difficult.
Do you want a ring?
Yeah. Do you want a ring and $500,000? I guess that's pretty good. I guess that's pretty compelling.
But it's like, is that worth it? Like with all the things they've done and the money they've spent, is it like, would you spend another $500,000 just to get like a fourth tackle who, if a couple guys got abducted by aliens, you could at least play him and like be okay?
Yeah. Especially if it's a younger guy. Like if you can get a guy who's got like 2 or 3 years of eligibility left, and it's like, you want to come here, develop, be our third tackle, and then be our starting tackle next year. Like I could see that.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, last quick break. A couple more things when we come back right after this on Kings of Columbus. Back on Kings of Columbus, we would direct you guys to Kings of the North. If you like this, then Kings of the North is like kind of like this, except it's not about Ohio State.
That'll do it.
It's like this if this was about Boston College and Purdue. But it's fun. I think it's like I used to always say, I used to say it on my shows, and I'd say it in the press box, I'd say it whatever, people would be like, hey, what do you think of like this other college football thing? And I was like, I have no opinion of that because I don't get paid to cover that. Yeah. And so like when I'm home, I'm not just watching Boise State, San Diego State randomly. I'm watching How I Met Your Mother reruns. Like, I apologize, but it wasn't in my purview. But now that stuff's in my purview, like I do enjoy it. Like I like trying to figure out like the context of these teams against each other. So Kings of the North, we did a spring game breakdown on our first show this week where we did Ohio State, but we also did Penn State, which again, I think that probably matters to Ohio State fans. We did Pitt, we did Cincinnati, we did Boston College, we did Utah, we did Purdue, because those were all the spring games on Saturday. Then next week on Kings of the North, we'll break down a bunch of other spring games, including Michigan is this Saturday, Notre Dame is this Saturday, Iowa's this Saturday, Syracuse is this Saturday, Iowa State's this Saturday, Michigan State, bunch of interesting teams. So, you know, if you love Ohio State, like this is the place to be, this channel, right? Mm-hmm. The podcast, like for real. Where else? Where it could be better? But if you want to go beyond that, if there's a next step, and that's our pitch to every fan base in the North, is like, we're not telling you, you're not going to give up your Wisconsin podcast or your Iowa State podcast or your Oregon podcast. But if you want the next thing, don't listen to like some national show where they're going to talk about Georgia and Alabama the whole time and barely acknowledge that your team exists. Listen to us. Yeah. And actually, Ohio State has some things in common with teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Notre Dame and Iowa and Nebraska and West Virginia and Cincinnati that they maybe don't have in common with Alabama and Georgia. So anyway, it's the Kings of the North pitch. You guys know it's there if you want it. Separate channel on your podcast feed and on YouTube. All right. So our guy, Jason M., our assistant producer for this show, asked another great question about Would you rather keep college football as it is with kind of all the uncertainty and weirdness and lack of rules around the NIL stuff and the portal? Keep it just as it is right now, or would you rather go to a world where the NFL develops like a G League, but you create some structures for college football that make more sense, but you lose like the top of the cream of college football because they go to this G League? What would you rather have? I think it spurs an interesting discussion that we're going to have on Kings of the North, the second show this week. We're not going to do it here. What we are going to do here from Jason, another one, is you have to choose one. Either, this is for you, Landis, either Rocky is based in Pittsburgh or you can never eat another cheesesteak in your life. What would you choose?
Oh, that's easy for me. It's Rocky in Pittsburgh. I'm not a Rocky guy.
Yeah.
I've only seen parts of the first one, and then like the first newer one, where I think he fights like Antonio Tarver, and I'm supposed to believe that a 100-year-old Sylvester Stallone can beat a Antonio Tarver.
Do you actually would you want Rocky to be based in Pittsburgh? Like, great, fake boxer, put him in Pittsburgh. I'm good. You can have the statue.
Yeah, because then I can make fun of them for like idolizing a fake movie boxer. Like from what I understand, it's a great film, and that's fine.
Wow.
But I don't like that like Philadelphia sports have become almost like synonymous with a fake athlete. You know what I mean? Like, and like the thing that they do at Philly sports games when they're trying to pump the crowd up is like play the song from Rocky. It's like, I get it. It's a good story, but like it wasn't real. So I don't know. I just there are people, for a lot of people who in Philadelphia, like Rocky is a religion, and like it wasn't that for me. It wasn't really that for my family. So like I just kind of missed it. But I probably am a little too strong in like actively criticizing it too, to be fair, like to those people. So
you are creating quite a catalog of movies you have never seen.
Wow. Yeah. Rocky and The Godfather.
Yeah. That's a big 1-2 punch, brother. So like Allen Iverson statue, yes.
Yeah.
Mike Schmidt statue, yes. Yeah. Bobby Clark statue, yes. Donovan McNabb statue.
Oh, I like the McNabb. A big
Donovan McNabb statue, yes. Yeah. Joe Frazier statue, yes.
Yeah.
Fake guy in American flag trunk statue, no.
Yeah, which like I don't like. The Joe Frazier thing's the one that like annoys me. Like I actually there might be a Joe Frazier statue now, but like for the longest time there wasn't one, while there was one of Sylvester Stallone, who was like kind of from Philly. Like his brother went to the high school that was like 2 blocks from the house, 2 blocks from where I grew up. Same high school my mom went to. And Sylvester Stallone, I think, also went there for like a year. So like we're kind of from the same area of Philadelphia, but you know, Joe Frazier was like real and won real things, and Rocky wasn't. So
how much would it hurt you to never eat a cheesesteak again?
It would devastate me. I've been craving one for a while. Actually, I need one.
There are times, and I was back a couple weeks ago. What was I doing? Oh, it's when my daughter and I drove to Brooklyn to watch her school in the NCAA basketball tournament, and we drove through my hometown and we had dinner with my mom. And again, I'm not from Philly. I'm not going to pretend I'm from Philly. I don't want you to come through the screen and punch me in the neck because I'm from a small town 2 hours outside Philadelphia. But we do have cheesesteaks in my town, like better cheesesteaks there than they have in Ohio. And like we stopped, and it was like we had dinner. We were at my mom's house for an hour. It's like, what are we going to get for dinner? And we got cheesesteaks. And it was like, there are times when in the chicken finger, hamburger, pizza, burrito world where nothing hits like a cheesesteak. We're like, it is like, that is what I must consume. I'm making myself eat it right now. I'm going to have to go get it for lunch. Like it just hits in a different way than anything else in sort of the fast food universe.
Yeah, I agree. We drove through, Austin and I, when we went to WrestleMania in Philly, we drove through your neck of the woods, by the way. Because we went out of the way to go to Hershey, to go to Trogs, and then the way it like took us back to the turnpike, we had to like drive like by Palmyra. Yeah,
you could have gone to my house. You could have taken a picture, like a shrine.
Yeah.
I went to Ryan Day's house when I was in New Hampshire, but you didn't go to my house when you were in Palmyra.
We did not. No, we were on a tight schedule. We had to get to Philly.
Was that like a beer place in Hershey?
Trogs is a brewery that's like
Brewery?
right next to Hershey Park. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that is. I mean, I've driven past that place like 5,000 times and I've never gone there.
Yeah, it's good. They have actually, even if you don't drink beer, like they have good food there.
I could have sent you to. Well, you're gonna have to go again next time I'm going. I don't really want to go to the wrestling, but I just want to make you guys drive around my town. Okay. This is from Avery, who also sent like a bunch of awesome questions, but I'm grabbing one. Whose jersey will have the most sales this upcoming season? Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith, or other? And this is interesting, like in the new world with NIL stuff, where you can like get the jerseys made with the name on it and stuff. I always loved it when it was just the numbers world, and especially the year when like Terrell Pryor and Malcolm Jenkins were both number 2, and I was like, what value from a number 2 jersey? But now you get a name on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Jeremiah Smith.
I think it's Jeremiah Smith. Yeah. The kids, when we were walking off the field at the spring game, like players like kind of linger at that fence outside the locker room. The kids were really into Jeremiah. I think there's gonna be a lot of Jeremiah Smith jerseys.
Berm took a picture of Jeremiah Smith that makes Jeremiah Smith look like he is part of the Marvel universe. And every outlet in the world has been stealing the photo and using it because it is such a spectacular photo. And Berm is going to get in his car and drive around and burn buildings down because people keep doing it. But he looks like Captain America in that photo. And then he makes spectacular plays, but like the guy has a vibe, man. Like
he does.
It is something. And I do think like you just have to be a little strategic, and whether you're like a grown-up or a kid, but if you're a kid, there's a grown-up buying the jersey for you. Like hopefully, like, right, who knows, but like to get 3 years of value out of a jersey is like such a thing. It's like you could get a Travion Henderson jersey, you could get a Jack Sawyer jersey, you could get a Denzel Burke jersey, but like an Emeka Ibuka jersey. But like if you don't have one already, you're only going to be able to wear that for a year while you're actually going to their games. You're getting 3 years out of Jeremiah Smith. You're getting 2 out of Caleb Downs. Those are the best 2 choices because you want to maximize the jersey value. I think the Jeremiah Smith jersey value will be through the roof.
Yeah. Plus it's single digits, so I think people like that too, right?
Yes.
Or for both these guys. For Caleb it's 2. For Jeremiah it's 4. I guess the one thing I don't know. The risk you run with a guy like Jeremiah is like, is he going to change his number?
But he does have a cool enough number already. Like, what would he change it to? 1? Like, 1. What would be cooler than 4?
1.
Who's got 1 now on offense?
Quinshon Judkins.
Oh, yeah. Run the risk. Well, then just have to get another one. Anyway, I think you're going to see a lot of Jeremiah Smiths in a way that like I'm always fascinated by that. Like just remembering, like you saw so many 33s when James Laurinaitis was there. You know, and you saw so many 2s with Terrell Pryor and Malcolm Jenkins. There have just been times when it's like, wow, like Braxton Miller, right? They're just like certain guys. Man, that'll be a good list of like Buckeyes. I always say I'm going to write this down for a future episode. Then I write it on a scrap of paper, then I throw it away and I forget it. But like Buckeyes that like capture the imagination.
Yeah.
Like I think Braxton's 1 on that list. Buckeyes who have captured the imagination. But I think like Jeremiah Smith might be a guy who like winds up like super high on that list.
Yep. I think so. I think he'll get there pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay. The last couple we're going to do are from Ben. Both of these are from Ben. And the first one is, there's been plenty of talk about the high potential this team has, but what do you guys consider to be the team floor? What might a worst case scenario Murphy's Law type of season look like? Not trying to be negative with this question. I just think the ceiling floor discussion help puts the season in context.
I think their floor is they're still a playoff team.
That is, I think that's the discussion. You nailed it.
Yeah. The defense is too good, I think, for them to be anything other than a playoff team. Like they might go 10-2, but I think they're a playoff team.
So like worst case scenario, right, is they're going to play 3 teams that can like it. potentially like at least compete with them, right? Is that fair to say with Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State? Is that how we would characterize that?
Yeah.
So I think the true floor is you lose all three of those games and you lose a game like the Purdue game or the Iowa game, right? You lose one game that you don't like, you can't believe it, that you don't see coming, that they lose a game as a 20-point favorite, which is not what has happened in the Ryan Day era. But I think that's almost like earthquake scenario.
Right.
That's not really true floor. So I guess if they don't have like a good win, because we've said Ohio State's probably a playoff team at 9-3, honestly. But if they don't have a good win, if they lose to the three best teams they play, if they lose to Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon, and that means probably that Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon are all in the playoff, would they be the fourth? They probably still would be the fourth best team in the Big Ten, but would they make it in that scenario? The answer might be yes, but I don't know if it's a slam dunk yes.
It's not a slam dunk yes. It would depend. Like they would have to be helped by like Nebraska like being good this year, like a Nebraska being like a 7-win team or an 8-win team, and maybe like Michigan State or Iowa.
Yeah.
Or Iowa will probably be big in that conversation. Like, is Iowa going to win 9-10 games this year? But Ohio State is one of the teams that beats them. Like, that's the kind of stuff you'd be looking for in that scenario. But like, I can there 3 losses. I don't think is like automatic elimination for Ohio State.
Right. But I think 3 losses is the floor. I think 3 losses is the floor. It's an interesting discussion, and this is something we could do on KOTN. We could. Maybe Mike can
write it down and throw it out.
Ceiling and floor for all 26 teams in the North.
Oh yeah, we should do that. Yeah.
Ceiling and floor. All right. I do actually have a spreadsheet. I'll put it in the spreadsheet. All right. Last one. Also from Ben. It's the Woody Hayes Genie. I will phrase it as Ben phrased it. A Woody Hayes Genie pops out of a bottle of Fanta and grants you each one Ohio State related wish. You can make any change, large or small, to Ohio State athletics. Nothing is impossible. What do you change? So I do think for something like this, like you can't change results. I don't think you can say, I would grant Ohio State 7 football national championships in the next decade, right? Like that's not what it's about. It's like, what are the things around it that would give Ohio State the best chance to succeed or be fun or have fans love them or get great players? But it's not just like, I would grant Ohio State 100 consecutive wins against Michigan, because like that's no fun. So I have a million different ways I might go with this. I'm going to make you start.
It doesn't have to be football related, right?
No,
he said athletics.
It does not.
Yeah, it would be like a basketball specific arena that's not the shot. Like a state of the art, properly sized college basketball arena. Or I guess alternatively, keep what's the other basketball arena? I can't remember its
St. John's.
St. John, thank you. Keep St. John Arena from like sinking into the earth and go play there, maybe. But I think more likely go build them like a real basketball arena.
So that is actually where my head was at for a lot of this too. It was either the arena or it was like grant Ohio State like a generational basketball coach. Like give Ohio State like their Bob Knight, right? Give Ohio State like their Dean Smith or their just like, here we go. Yes, Eldon Miller was good. Yes, Thad Matta had a lot of success, but like let them get in on the ground floor of a truly excellent coach who's going to be here for 30 years. But let me ask you this. Does that mean, because it's whatever you could do to help football would be the number one thing, because that's what drives the engine. That's what people care about the most. That's what defines Ohio State. If you and I both started thinking about basketball, does that mean we don't think Ohio State football needs anything?
Yeah, I don't know, like a weird, like very specific one would be like, I don't know, more more top 100 defensive linemen are in the Midwest than they are in the South or something like that. Like like from like an infrastructure standpoint, like I don't really know what I would say for Ohio State. Like you can get a new practice facility or like you could put grass in the shoe, I guess. But I guess I know people want that, but I don't know if that actually helps Ohio State win games. So I don't know what it would be.
Because I do think in recent years, you might have said something like, I would grant them an unbelievable defensive coordinator, right? I think
Yeah.
maybe even 6 months ago, you maybe would have said, I would grant them the ability and wherewithal to dive in on NIL and not lose any players over NIL, right? Just go have the money and go hard and not be held back at all. But
Yeah.
it feels like they've upped their game there. I feel like there would have been times like in the Jim Tressel era where you would have said, I would grant them like a more modern offense, you know? I think at times like you could have said like, I would grant them whatever, like even better recruiting somehow. But are we seriously at a place with Ohio State football? We're like, no, we're good. Thanks, Woody. Go back in the bottle, brother. Woody comes out of the bottle and we're like, it's a basketball arena. And he's like, are you freaking kidding me? I came out of a bottle to grant you a basketball arena. What the thing is right over there? It's the same one they played in when I coached here. It's right there. Go play there. It's fine. But like whatever what they did to the shoe, where they modernized the shoe, they kept the integrity and the history of the shoe, but modernized it.
Yeah.
Like to say that if you like go back in time and like they do that to St. John, and that's what they do, and they're playing at St. John, and it's an awesome place to play, but it also has luxury boxes and all that kind of stuff. I think is the right answer. But like if it's football specific, the way where I went with football is like it would be like all of a sudden, like for the next 20 years, most of the best high school players in the country are like in the Big Ten footprint.
Right.
Like it's not that the demographics say all the good players are in the South. It's like, hey, what do you know? Wow, it's been a revitalization of Western Pennsylvania football. The Rust Belt is back, right? 17 of the top 100 players in the country are from Ohio.
Bring steel production back to the Midwest.
Like, yeah, union jobs and like whatever, we're all good to go, right? And that's like, would it be that? Like, and if it was that it's just like there's more good players close to you, where you become the go-to place for them, where you don't have to go to the South to get Jeremiah Smith out of Florida, right? And you don't have to get Von Bell out of the Tennessee-Georgia border and that kind of thing, like that world. But when it comes to the actual structure of Ohio State, like money, facilities, recruiting, scheme, and like the dedication to go all in on football, I even feel like that's been upped a little bit in this world. So now we're at the point for real. Ben comes, we're like, Ben wants to meet us down by campus. He's got a bottle. He's like, come on, guys, let's go. We'll go over to the what's the bar right there by campus that Woody used to go hang out at?
The Varsity Club?
The Varsity Club. We're going to go over to the Varsity Club and we're going to rub the bottle, and Woody's going to pop out. We're going to ask for it. And so we go there, we rub the bottle, and then it just winds up the four of us just like sit at the bar and shoot the breeze because we're all good.
Yeah. We just point to St. John and say, can you put some luxury suites in there and maybe renovate the bathrooms? We're good to go.
It's like, Ryan, we got a Woody Genie over here. You want to come over? I'll grant you a football wish. And Ryan comes over. Ryan's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I don't know. I'm like, because it's even like, it's like, all right, Woody Genie. I would like Nick Saban to retire, and we get a 5-star safety and a 5-star quarterback. We got him. They're good.
Yeah.
It's like maybe they did. Maybe the Woody Genie is already out of the bottle, and the Woody Genie showed up at Nick Saban's office and made him retire and told Caleb Downs and Julian Sand to go to Ohio State. It's already happened.
Yeah, we didn't consider that. I don't know, because it wouldn't be like a new football stadium, right? Like people love the
people like the Woody Genie comes out and tears down the shoe.
Get rid of the shoe.
We need a dome. It's like, no.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Money or access to players, I guess. Yeah.
Which is a remarkable answer. we have a Woody Genie and we don't really want to use it. We just want to hang out with him or fix basketball. So that tells you that answer tells you as much as anything about where Ohio State is right now, and that through the ups and downs and the craziness of the past couple of years, and some coaching upheaval and an athletic director retiring and 4 new teams coming into the Big Ten and a new 12-team playoff, like almost everything, like even like I think you might have granted Ohio State an expanded playoff in the world where they were like 5th and 6th a bunch of years. It's like, just give them a shot. Let a few more teams get in.
Yeah.
Got it. It feels like maybe the Woody Genie has been at work.
Could you ask the Woody Genie to give Michigan a death penalty? Is that might be the answer?
But like Jim Harbaugh leaving and taking half his coaching staff to the Chargers, like, is a version of a death penalty. Where he's like, I couldn't get the NCAA to do it, but at least I got the Chargers to. It's like, all right, Woody, that's good enough. Because it's like, even there would have been worlds of like, make the conference stronger to compete with the SEC, but not so strong that Ohio State's still not the best team. It's like, okay,
right.
Kind of did that. Like make Michigan better to improve the rivalry. It's like, okay, they did that. Now again, like Ohio State's got to beat Michigan, but like everything, like you got to beat Michigan. But Woody is not in the business of handing out wins over Michigan. He wants Ohio State to earn it. Correct. He just wants Ohio State to do everything it can to earn that win. Grant Jim Tressel in office in the Woody. Like maybe that's it. But Jim Tressel already came back and gave a speech.
He did.
Ron, Ron, would you say that if you had a Woody Genie, you wouldn't even use it? Like that's where we are. It makes me want to have Ryan Day on the show and ask him to use the Woody Genie. The Woody Genie is not going to die. The Woody Genie is, I think, going to become a part of the show because this is too good. All right. So that's it. That tells you what we think about Ohio State football right now. We appreciate you guys making Kings of Columbus part of your week. We're sorry we weren't here for a while, but that's all on me. And now we are back and rolling. So expect us to be back on a schedule of Kings of Columbus once a week and Kings of the North twice a week for now, before Kings of the North expands to a 5-day-a-week show for the start of the 2024 college football season. As always, thanks to our great producer, Mike Yorstowski. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of Columbus.